Hey guys, how you doing? And gals. I know there's females that watch my videos too. Happy Homebrew Wednesday or Thirsty Thursday, whichever it is that you want to call it. Depends on where you live. Hey, maybe somewhere in the world it's still Wednesday. I don't know. But anyways, there is actually a Thirsty Thursday video series out there on YouTube. I guess it's kind of a spin-off of the Homebrew Wednesday thing. I don't know. I've seen a few of the videos, and I think I know who created it, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to mention any names. But if you're the one, post it down below if you're the guy who made up the series. And I'm just going to call mine Homebrew Wednesday because that's what I've done all this time. I'm on my 4th year of Homebrew Wednesday videos. This has been 3 years for me, and I think I've only missed 1 week, maybe. I'm just going to continue to call it Homebrew Wednesday, and I'll do my best to get it out as quickly, as close to Wednesday as I can. But I will explain to you this week's excuse. There's always going to be an excuse. But first, let's take a cheers and a 17. Kind of like a... No, it would have to be like this. Like that. Yeah, there you go. I bet you there was a screen cap somewhere in the world there. Anyway, no, last night I was busy. Tuesday night, which is normally when I would film this video, helping my son set up a new small piece of equipment that he got, which kind of leads me into the first thing I want to talk about, which isn't necessarily homebrew related, but I will get to the homebrew related stuff in just a moment. I got a sort of a gift from somebody, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned it because I always do. My son David, he's 16, and he's a young musical composer, and he creates instrumental music pieces. Although he can sing, he prefers sort of the cinematic, suspense kind of epic, video game style, music, or musical scores for movies, whatever. And so that's what he does. And he's got a computer up in his room and software for recording. He's got my old Yamaha DX7 up there for a keyboard controller. And he's got all the sounds and things that, you use for that. And he sits up there and he makes little, well, I shouldn't say little, he composes music. Let's take a short listen to one of the pieces he's recently done. Okay, not bad, eh? He could be out soaping cars or spray painting walls or things like that, but no, he's in doing this. So, and I'm quite proud of him. One of the problems he was having, though, is that when he's using his computer to compose this music, the sound card kept crashing and doing weird sounds and locking up, and it was really frustrating. Like every 30 seconds he had to reset his program, and oh, it was just terrible. So I came to the conclusion that I was going to have to get him an audio interface, which is more suited towards this type of thing. And I guess I happened to mention it somewhere. I mentioned like maybe on my cast or something. And so one of my viewers and good friends, and also the guy who does, all my voiceovers for my broadcasts. Let's check a couple of those out.
17 aftershocks felt all over the globe, emanating from the Craig Tube dungeon. Sit tight, you're in for a wild ride. Cheers, 17. You don't need to ask who's got the best tunes. You're here, ain't you? Craig Tube. Cheers, 17.
You might recognize that voice if you've watched my live show on Friday nights. His name is Optimod. His first name is Tim. Hope he doesn't mind me saying that. And he lives in New Zealand. So Tim, or Optimod, as he's known on YouTube and in the chat rooms, decided that he was going to deposit what I would consider a significant amount of money into my PayPal account, which he did, and he said in the message, he said that this is for David's audio interface. Now, I can't even thank him enough, and David is over the moon. I mean, he's thrilled because of this, and we're a little short right now because of Christmas and other things, but because of that, I was able to get him his audio interface. I got him this M-Audio M-Track. I'll just get it in close so you can see it. Not that you guys care, but just so some people might be interested in it, what it is. Sorry, blah, can't even talk. And so this allows him to control his sound on his computer through this thing instead of through his sound card, and it works much better. So I just want to say thanks to Optimod for one thing. David will be sending you a personal message himself, but so because of Optimod's generous donation, which took me totally by surprise, I ordered this and it came like within a couple of days, and he's got it up there now, and he's using it. So that's why I haven't got the actual unit. I've just got the box because he's actually using it at the moment. So thank you so much, Optimod. You have no idea how happy you've made this young man. And me too, because I'm a very proud father. Anyways, it took me a while to set that up last night and get it kind of working. There's a few things I had to adjust, and in this software. And anyway, so by the time I got finished that, it was too late to do my Homebrew Wednesday. So, but I always mention when I get a gift or something from somebody, so that's part of the program here. Onward and forward to the beer stuff. Although that was homebrew related because he's homebrewing music up there, right? He's a home recording artist, right? Homebrew? Okay. We always try to stretch that a little bit just so that it fits in. In honor of last week's, or in response to last week's Homebrew Wednesday video, this is the first beer I've had today. I thought, okay, this week I can't be pissed, when I do the Homebrew Wednesday. So I made sure that this is my first beer, so I'm not inebriated like I was last week. I had a good time. I love those Caesars. They're awesome. The tip of the week last week, or was it last week? Guys, I lose track. Anyways, was the pocket rocket, whatever the heck it's called. The syringe that you squirt. Get out of there. My dog is in my garbage over there. I'm making a video. Don't you know that? You're not supposed to get into the garbage while I'm making a video. Anyway, the syringe that you use to pump, make more foam on your beer. And one of the comments in the comments, which I do read, by the way, was, I don't know the exact wording, but it was something to the effect of, like, who cares, or why would you care whether it had lots of foam on it, or why does it matter, and things like that. Well, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really matter, unless it matters to you. But the thing about foam on beer is that it does change the mouthfeel. If you've got foam on your beer, like even I've just got like just a cap, what we call a cap on this beer here, and even just that alone, just that, it gives, when you put your lips on that and take your sip of beer, it does change the mouthfeel of the beer. In other words, the beer has a smoother feel on the tongue, which I would compare to, like, say, like a cappuccino or something, where they make those coffee with the foam on top and it's really smooth, or if you put, like, you make hot chocolate and you put mushrooms. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody putting mushrooms on hot chocolate. Marshmallows. God, I've only had a few sips of beer as well. Marshmallows on your hot chocolate, and it makes, like a froth on the top of it, and it gives it a smooth, That's what we're talking about with beer. Having a head on your beer like that, even just this much, does change the texture of the beer. It affects the experience in the mouth. Okay, that's why people go on about foam. But if you don't care about it, and I personally think it's overrated myself. I mean, I'm sitting here with this beer with this little cap on it, and there are some people out there, and I won't name names, but who would scoff at this and go, what the hell's that? Come on, where's the head on that beer, you know? First of all, this is a Pilsner anyway, so it's not going to have, you know, I didn't add any hops to it. It's not going to have a lot of head on it. This is the way a Pilsner is supposed to look. Right? So, and it's got lacing and stuff there. But the point of the matter is that doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter to you, then it doesn't matter to, why should it matter to anybody else? Whether there's lacing or foam or whatever. That's the thing about home brewing beer, and a lot of things about home brewing is that if it doesn't bother you, like if it doesn't bother you that the beer is a little bit, like this is not bad actually, this particular beer. Who cares? Why would it matter to anybody? It shouldn't matter to anybody if it doesn't matter to you. It's your beer, right? So, you know, don't beat yourself up over, well, he's got lots of head on his beer, but I don't have any head on mine. If you don't care, let it go. Don't worry about it. But if your goal is to produce a beer with lots of head retention, and you've added things, certain grains or whatever, that are supposed to provide that, and then you end up with a lot of head retention, you've reached your goal, and you should be proud of yourself. The point I'm trying to make is, don't worry if your beer doesn't look like the next guy's. If you're happy with your beer, if you're happy with the taste, the look of it, whatever, then that's what matters. It doesn't, you know, don't let it bother you just because it doesn't look like someone else's. But if you've got a goal to reach, if you want it to look like someone else's or taste like someone else's or whatever, then you can achieve that goal. And then you can, you know, traverse that terrain, if you will. But, you know, this works for me. This happens to be, and I know 3 guesses as to what brand of beer kit this is. First 2 don't count. And it's a Pilsner. And but I didn't add the yeast that came with the kit. I added a US-04 yeast, just as an experiment, and took a long time to ferment. Everybody says that US-04s and 05s they ferment really quickly. You ought to try some Cooper's yeast, because the Cooper's yeast is a hell of a lot faster than this stuff, than the US varieties, or the 04s and 05s anyway. It just kept on going. Finally I put a heat belt on it. I thought, I gotta get this, this has to get done. So I put a heat belt on it, and the next day it was finally done, you know. That was 2 weeks. So I don't think they're as quick as, you know, the Cooper's yeast, but I think the Cooper's yeast has, I think there might be a yeast nutrient in there too, as well. So maybe the next time I try using the US varieties and I need to get it done quickly, I'll get some yeast nutrient from my homebrew supplier and see if that makes any difference. But it tastes great. Actually, it tastes different than a Pilsner should taste, because I believe that the US-04 yeast doesn't attenuate as far down as a Pilsner yeast would. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a yeast, technician or whatever. Let's do this week's tip of the week. In fact, I'm going to do 2 of them, and that should take us to the end of this video. First tip of the week is from Bill. I'm not going to say I'm not going to do last names, okay? Unless you want me to. Send me a tip of the week at craigtubemail@gmail.com. If you want me to say your full name or whatever name you want me to say, just tell me and I'll say whatever name you want me to say. But this is from Bill, and he's asking me about pouring. He's noticed that when I pour my beers, I'll do different things, you know, depending, you know, on which beer it is. And that's kind of the key. It does depend for me on the pour that I do. And this is my own personal opinion. I'm not saying that this is the be-all and end-all way of looking at pouring beers, but this is what I've come up with, and from my experience, what works for me. Two things that dictate the way I pour a beer. One is the type of glass, and two is the behavior of the beer when it starts to pour into the glass. So if you're using a thin glass, a thin tall glass like this, that is fairly straight up and down. This one's a little thinner at the bottom, but it's pretty straight. It gets a little wider at the top. You're probably going to get more agitation while you're pouring, which means you're going to get more head as the beer comes up the glass. Okay. If you're using, let me see what I've got here. I don't want to pick a dirty one. Well, some of these I gotta do my laundry, if you will. I gotta clean my glasses. But just say you're using a glass like this. Yes, it's dirty. You're not going to get... See, this is fairly straight up and down. It widens here. I know this is for when you stack them so they don't stick together. Someone told me that. But with this glass, you're not going to get as much foam because there's not as much agitation. It's a wider glass. And it's a fairly straight up and down glass. Fairly straight up and down. Okay. And you can do these experiments on your own. Let's say a glass like this. Again, I'm going to hold it because I've got a few of these I have to wash. This glass gets wider as it goes up. You're going to get less agitation. You're going to get less foam on your beer. So if you're pouring a stout or a beer that's got a lot of foam and you can't control the foam, then you might want to use a glass that gradually gets wider as it gets up to the top, and a wider glass will work better for that. This glass here, I think this one is, no, it's not cleaned out either. I'm embarrassed. This one here, it gets wider and wider and wider, but then it gets thinner at the top, and that will help develop a little bit more head. As the glass gets thinner, it gets narrower, the head will grow faster. You can do these experiments yourself. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up, okay? For the most part, this is how it sort of works. All right. Let's see. Like this glass here. This is a clean glass. Should have used this one instead. Same thing, okay? You're gonna get, the head's gonna sort of thin down, and then it's gonna sort of, near the top, it's gonna get, for the most part, I'm not saying every beer is gonna behave that way. We can't forget my glass with all the different beers and stuff on it too. Love this thing, it's good stuff. This sort of glass here, this one here starts out fatter at the bottom and it gets narrower and narrower as it gets up the top. This is good for beers that don't seem to have a lot of head when you pour them. I like these kind of glasses for when I make a porter or something like that, and it doesn't have a lot of foam, just like my last one that I did. And you use a glass like that, okay? Last thing is that when I'm pouring a beer, and again, this is just me, I'll start to pour it down the side. I don't have a beer bottle around here that I can use for a prop. Down the side of the glass, and I'll check to see what's happening. And if it seems to be developing a decent amount of foam, then I'll just keep on doing that. I'll just keep on watching. And when it's about halfway up, like about here, I'll assess the situation. And if I think I want a little more foam than what it's developing, then I'll straighten the glass up and give it a little more of an aggressive pour, which means you're pouring straight onto the beer. But if the beer is really foamy and it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to fit all this in the glass, then you want to ease it down the side and just be easy with it and pour it slow. So you need to, adjust what you do depending on the behavior of beer. That's me. Okay? Is it really that important? No, I guess not, unless it's important to you, as I said before. If you want to experiment, if you want to buy yourself a case of 12 beers, 12 identical beers, and get some different glasses and sit there one night and just experiment what happens with each glass and what happens when you adjust the pour and whatnot, do it. Because I have done that. I'm guilty. Just to see what the different styles of glasses, you know, how they affect the beer and the way it behaves in the glass. I think it's sort of important, especially when you're trying to present a beer or review a beer, and someone sends you a beer and you've only got one to try, like this one here. Oh, there's no label, but this is one that's been sent in. It's a pumpkin. Still sitting in my fridge, awaiting its fate. So I have to decide what glass I'm going to use. And there's certain glasses that I have that are basically, it's safe. They're safe to use with any beer. This glass being one of them, which is why I use it a lot, which is why it's not cleaned out. It's a good all-around glass for just about any style of beer because it's got both the widening and the narrowing, and you can really, it's a fairly large glass, so you can really judge. You've got lots of time to judge what's going on and to figure out what you're going to do with the glass and with the beer. Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, am I being ridiculous? You know, let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or if you disagree or if you think this is nonsense. You know, you can do the same thing when you're dispensing out of your keg. You can do the same thing with the glass and produce whatever kind of, you know, I can pour a beer that's going to look like that when it's filled up, or I can pour a beer that's going to have this much foam on it with the same glass and the same beer. It just depends on what I think I want. And remember, the more foam you create on your beer while you're pouring it, the flatter the beer will be. Okay, because you're agitating the carbonation and you're releasing it. So you have to decide that too. There's lots of little things, you know. So, but that's, again, that's just my own experience and my own opinion on pouring. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments about that, by all means, don't be afraid to say something down below. Okay, the last thing, one more tip of the day before I go, kegging. And it's a short, small thing. You may have already heard me say this before, but guys, make sure when you keg your beers, when the keg is filled up and you just put your lid on, before you move the keg anywhere or jostle it around, make sure you purge the CO or the oxygen out of the top of the keg. So what I do is I keg it over here. I very gently carry it over to where I can get my CO2 tank. I do my purge, 6 or 7 squirts out of the valve, and then you're free to shake it and jostle it and roll it and do whatever you want with it. I pick it up, put it in my keezer, or my kegerator, I mean, and I start chilling it down. But don't mess with it too much before you purge it now. And I think I'm more than out of time. So thank you very much for watching. Visit 17brewcrew.com. Christmas is coming up. Great time to buy a shirt. tgtshirts.com if you haven't already. And thank you so much to all you guys who have. I hope you're enjoying your new shirts. I've seen some photographs and whatnot. If you want to send me a photograph of yourself wearing your new shirt, craigtubemail@gmail.com. Put the subject shirt in the subject line. Guys, this is not for asking me questions. I don't accept questions in that email. It's simply for, you know, what I ask you to send me, requests that I make. That's what I'm going to pay attention to in this particular email address. It's strictly for if I need you to send me feedback or something or a picture or whatever. And this week it's picture of yourself wearing your CraigTube shirt. Send it in to craigtubemail@gmail.com and I will put it in my next Homebrew Wednesday video. We'll make a little montage or something or whatever, okay? Be safe. I'll see you real soon, guys. Take care.